Okay. Test this. Awesome. Okay. I think we're ready to get started here tonight, so thank you all for coming. My name is Dylan, and I work here at the library. Unfortunately, our director, Rachel Crocker, was not able to attend this forum tonight, but she will be here in the future. So, before we begin, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the library, especially our mission. The mission of the Albany County Public Library is to build meaningful connections, inspire growth, cultivate curiosity, and enhance community. And we believe that with these forums, we are able to do all of those things. We would, of course, like to thank the League of Women Voters for all of their work, putting these together and organizing pretty much everything for these forums, so thank you all. We'd also like to thank you all for being here in person, especially those here in this room and those online as well. For those of you in the room, you might see we have some cameras set up all around the room. So we are live streaming this event tonight. If you could please be mindful of the camera, don't block it or accidentally trip on the wires, that would be great. For the candidates in this room, thank you guys for being here. You do have microphones in front of you. So when you are answering a question, please speak directly into the microphone so that not only we in the room can hear you, but those online can hear you as well. So awesome. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lynn.
All right, holding this last night worked a whole lot better. So you might take that as a lesson. So thank you, Dylan. It's Dylan May. And Dylan is usually joined by another employee of the ACPL, and that's Riley Sjogren. And Riley, I assume, is still sick, but maybe helping from home. Yeah, so he's putting things online at home. And then there's Rachel Crocker. We couldn't do this without you guys, and we don't do everything. If you've looked at our old videos, you'll see the marked difference. The library has benefited from increased technology, increased technicians, and I think they're a joy to behold. So watch some of them, yours and others. Welcome to the audience, like Dylan was saying, and to all of you who are viewing now, invite your friends and neighbors to view, to get to know our candidates. Thank you also. I'll thank you later more. You can view the video once it's done, either on the League of Women Voters Facebook pages, eventually I think on the web pages, certainly on the library web pages. It's already up on the library web pages. I watched last night's forum. The City TV, channel 191, will be will be showing this video. Also, you can see it on the platform Vote 411, which was designed and is maintained by the National League of Women Voters. And they keep putting more and more into that. So if you have any questions about the election, check under Wyoming, Vote 411. That's the address, .org. I guess that's all I wanted to say about that. Oh, yes, the voter guide itself, which is a printed document, and it contains the information that's online on Vote 411 now, but in a printed form with pictures and with ads, and it comes out October 15th. There was a little bit of a delay, but the 15th it'll be out. And as soon as they launch that, we will post on our website a slimmed down version. No photos, no ads, just you and your responses. And there'll be printed copies around town, like we have one copy over here at the table that you can browse. We have a new member of the league, and she joined us because of our voter manual. She was registering in the courthouse and saw our voter services preview copy. And this is the 4th time she's been in a league of women voters. I think Missouri, Florida, South Carolina, and now here. And in all the other places she's been, they don't do forums, and they didn't do voter guides. And she couldn't believe what a what a treasure this was. So she felt like she was able to vote, and she joined. And I think she'll be volunteering soon here. So I think there are even people who are new to town and younger, much younger than me, think they're worthwhile. So I'm going to be your moderator tonight. Usually I just introduce the moderator. I should probably explain, although maybe one of you can explain better. There are many people running for 7 seats on the school board. There are 9 members of the school board, and we have a handout here that you can send out. We'll put it on our own website, but it lists you by your race. And in blue, I think I just gave it away. Just a minute. Yeah. No, I can't find it. Just a minute, it's over here. You can see all the candidates and their contact information that we took off the county assessor or the county clerk's website. And here you see them sorted out. The people on the top, that's they're not here for tonight. They're filling a 2-year unexpired term for Area A. And for that race, you select 2 out of the 2, 4, 6 candidates here on the list. Tonight we have most or many of the candidates, the 9 candidates who are running for the 4-year term in Area A. And out of that list, you pick 3. There's an Area B, which is the out-of-town version. The Area B is another 4-year term. We have 3 candidates, and you pick one of those. And finally, we have an at-large member of the school board, 4-year term, 2 candidates, and you pick one. Okay. The voter guide and 411, they all make it clear how many to choose on each one. I thought I would also show you my ballot today. It arrived. So if you haven't seen a ballot yet, I was concerned because Mr. Brian Schuster was here last night, and he was telling me how confusing the ballot looked. Well, I don't think it looks all that confusing, but I thought I would share it with you. And so maybe you can read up. The ballot amendments, there are 2 for the state. They appear at the top. I think they're clearly marked. Amendment A is about whether the counties, cities, and political subdivisions, whether they should be allowed to invest in equities, just like the state does, if we had any money in our budget to invest. And if you think that they should be allowed to do that, that isn't to say they have to, you vote for that. The Second Amendment is about Supreme Court judges and the Wyoming Supreme Court judges. Right now, they're forced to retire at the age of 70. This amendment would raise that age to 75. And if you're for that, vote for. Then there are 3 propositions for our county. One has to do with the 1% sales tax. And it just asks, are you willing to, let's see, what's the language here? I guess continue the sales tax through December 31 of 2026. And if you're for that, you vote for and not against. Then there's a separate issue that says whether you believe in the sales tax at all. You know, we keep voting to renew it, but perhaps you don't believe in it. And if you're for the county sales and use tax being permanent, in other words, no more of these 4-year votes, then you vote for. The other vote is you're just against it and you want it to stop. Okay, so those are the 5 amendment type things on the back. There's also a judicial decision that you're asked to make and approve who is it, Judge, is that here? Well, all right. So, what more can I say? I think that's all I wanted to say there. And if you meet Mr. Schuster, tell him we did try to make that as clear as we could. Okay, I think that's it. We do have timer. We have one timer tonight. Jamie Egolf wasn't able to join us tonight. She's at a conference for mental health carers. Al Tremblay is with us tonight, and he's going to show you cards. For most questions, those cards will start at 90 seconds, meaning you have that long to answer, and they'll go down 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and then finally, stop. We'd appreciate it if you paid attention to him. What else? I think that might be it. Anybody else? Nope. All right, let's go. Our questions. Our questions come from past voter guides and past forums. And I have 12 of those old questions with me tonight. I also have questions that people have given me already from the audience. I have 3 of them. And if I have 4, keep them coming. 5? No? Last night, the number of questions was just perfect. I think we were able to answer all the in-person questions. All right. So let's just begin, shall we? And I'll start at the east end here with Mr. Gosar. And if you would just make a simple statement, your name, what district you're running for, and since this is a... What?
Is it precinct?
Precinct? Did I get that wrong? Area.
Yeah, area.
Area A, B, 4-year term or 2-year term. Describe your race, if you would, please.
My name is Steve Gosar. I have a business here in town. I have 3 boys that are in the school system. I have an extensive work experience within the public schools. I'm a benefit. I've benefited from Wyoming public education, and I really think this is a really important part of our, what our community is, what quality education we give our kids. And I feel like I got something I can contribute to that conversation, and I just want to be a part of those, helping the school district makes those good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I should expand my question then for everybody. Like Mr. Gosar, if you would say just a few words about yourself, in addition to your name and your race.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Beth Bear. I am running.
You want to get closer to the mic.
Is that better? I might just pick it up here. Okay. My name is Beth
better.
Bear. I'm running for Area A 4-year. I have been on the school board for the last 4 years since being elected in 2018. So I've learned a lot of experience over the last 4 years and feel like I have a lot of knowledge that I'd like to carry forward and passion for continuing the work of our school district. I have 5 kids in the district, so I also am familiar with sort of the parent and kid perspective. I've got 3 kids at the middle school and 2 kids at the high school. For my job, I work for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. I supervise a fisheries crew and have been there for the last 17 years.
Thank you. Mr. Bleak?
My name is Dan Bleak. I've lived in Laramie since pretty much 1986. I'm running in Area A, the 4-year term. My wife, Nicole, and I have raised 4 kids, all in Laramie. 3 of them are now graduated from Laramie High School. We have 1 left. He's a freshman at Laramie High School. Similar to Steve, I think the quality of our kids' education is a large determinant in their future success. So I have a large stake in seeing all the Laramie and Rock River and our county students do well. I do have teaching experience. I taught high school math for 10 years, many of those right here in Laramie, so I have pretty good experience from the inside of the Albany County School District and how it operates. I currently work for Farm Bureau Insurance, which is headquartered here in Laramie. I've been there for 21 years.
Thank you. Mr. Swope?
Thank you. I'm Leo Swope. I'm running in Area B, which is the out-of-town area for Centennial, Rock River, and everything else outside. do have a Bachelor of Science in Education. I also worked for what's called intermediate units out of Pennsylvania before I moved here, and we dealt with a lot of 12 different school districts, depending on a regional section of what we dealt with. My specific area was kids with special needs. Worked on the financing and the providing of services for therapeutic staff support, behavioral specialists, anything that kids would need in school, in the home, or community. I absolutely agree with prior comments that education is key. I just don't think it's a key to the students. I think it's key to the community. Our community actually, you can see crime rates, you can see poverty and everything else based on how well our schools do. I think it's a key piece. We must ensure that our education is as top-notch as we can get it.
All right, well, thank you all. And let's start with our first question from the audience. All of them are rather hard-hitting, if you don't mind. How should the district deal with non-cisgendered students? Okay, Beth, you get to start this time.
Okay, so first and foremost, our district has a non-discrimination policy, and that really guides our district to ensure that all students are treated fairly and equitably. All students are cared for in our district, and so I would follow that policy. I think that all of our students deserve a chance at quality education, and it's our job to provide that as a district, not only academically, but we also care for the emotional and social development of kids in our district, and that's, in my opinion, part of a quality education. And so, thank you. And so, again, I think that all kids deserve to be treated fairly and equitably, and to be loved by those in our district.
Okay, thank you. Dan, do you want to take the same question? Should I repeat it?
No,
You're good.
Thank you. First, I would agree with Trustee Bear. The district does have a policy, and it's one that when the district has policies in place, it's the administration's duty to follow those policies. It's the board's responsibility to make sure that the policies that have been adopted properly reflect the majority's opinions in the district, and that stakeholders have had the opportunity to have input into those policies. So coming in as a new board member, the first thing I would want to understand is what are those policies before I automatically just assume they're right or wrong. That being said, I agree with Beth as well. No student should be discriminated against. However, students' best interests need to be kept at heart as well. And you have to be careful that in serving the best interests of some students, you might be not serving the best interests of other students. So it's a complex issue. But my main response would be you need to take a diverse group of stakeholders' opinions into account when you're forming those policies.
All right, thank you. Leo?
All right, yes, I agree with a lot of that as well. It's definitely a diverse situation. All students, every single student in Laramie, in Albany County, needs to have the respect, needs to get the best education possible. And I agree the policies need to be reviewed, but something that can be missing is how much of the community does know the policies. So I agree with Dan as well. The policies have to be reviewed. We have got to look at them, but also communicate with all the stakeholders that are involved in the community.
Okay. Steve, you're the last one. Let you wrap up.
Thank you. I think everybody really covered that pretty completely, but I do like just echoing what they say. Every student deserves the opportunity to get a quality education, where they're not bullied, where they're not discriminated. I do think that the policy is in place for a reason, and I think that proper review of those policies and making sure that all the stakeholders and everybody has an input into those is vital for us to continue to move forward to make sure those policies are in place, are the right ones.
Okay, thank you. And I observed the school board either in place or at a distance since COVID. I remember that there was a policy that needed drafting about bathrooms, and it was tabled about 3 years ago. Do you know, was it ever resolved? I will leave that. Sorry, it's sort of an unfair question. In any case, you might look into that when you're looking into resolutions. Here we have another audience question. Should the school district educate students about the historical discrimination about black people? Dan, I think you're first.
I think that's a fair question. And you're going to sense a theme to a lot of my answers. First, I'm going to know what are the standards that the state of Wyoming determines in terms of curriculum. We're part of the state. We need to follow those standards. Secondly is stakeholders should have input into what curriculum is being taught to our kids. So before we just adopt policies, we should make sure that we've heard from teachers, parents, students, other stakeholders within the community and understand that. I would expand on the question, though. I don't think it's just about historical discrimination against black people. I think it's, are we teaching facts about our history as a country? And that's not just discrimination against blacks, but it could also be discrimination against Native Americans. It could be other things in our history that we need to be cognizant of. But I would want the district and the administrators to first come up with what that plan is. My job as a board member would be to hold them accountable for coming up with those plans and ensuring they've gotten a broad variety of input from the district, from the stakeholders in the community in drafting those policies and that curriculum.
Leo?
Thank you. Absolutely, we should teach history as it is, history, truth in history. And oftentimes we hear truth in history, and we always hear the negative part. We also need to have the positive part. There's a lot of good, and there's a lot of bad that's happened. What did we do to overcome it, and what did we not do to overcome it? Whatever it would be, wherever it falls, that's what we should do. Again, Dan and I might have a lot of the same comments. The stakeholders are important. There are policies in place. There's actually guidelines of what we must follow. And as for us keeping people accountable, just like we should keep the administration accountable for the prior question, we should also keep everybody accountable for this. Are we following through with the plans? Are we following through with what the state requirements are and our own policies and procedures?
Okay. Steve?
Just to echo what Dan said, I totally agree. I don't think we should be able to pick and choose what we teach and how we teach it. I think we, as long as we're talking about an accurate, fair, and complete representation, I think that's definitely what we should do with our history. And like Leo said, there's some parts that are not flattering at all, but that's not something that we don't address. I think it's something that we learn from and we move forward from. I think that's the part of history, make sure that we don't repeat that by ignoring it. So I think a fair and accurate but complete representation is very important.
And Beth?
I agree with a lot of what's been said. Yes, I think that we should be teaching history and all of our subjects in a complete and factual way, and we do that. We have really educated, certified teachers that teach all of our subjects in a factual and thoughtful way. We also have curriculum that has been vetted before it's used. It's available to the public to look over and to make comment on. We teach according to the Wyoming Content and Performance Standards. There's input available every time those standards are redone. And so we do have standards that have a lot of public input, and we are always open to input from the public. But again, we do need to be teaching history and all of the facts of history. We need to teach our kids to be critical thinkers so that they can learn from our history, just like they can learn from all of our subjects. And again, we also want to motivate our kids to be active and engaged citizens as well.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we'll switch to a different author. Here's another question from the audience. According to the 2020 to 2021 Albany County School District Number 1 report card, the high school proficiency in English is 62% proficient. Math is 46% proficient. Yeah, I thought it was the other way around. Well, what do you propose to increase and improve, or what do you propose to increase and improve student achievement? Yes, you're right. Leo, you start.
Originally, I've had kids, my own kids. I have 3 kids in Laramie right now, not in Laramie schools, but in the county, sorry. And I've had some of them come from districts where the proficiency is 81%. So me looking at 81% coming into 64, 51, it is something that I absolutely would like to address. I don't think we should just settle, okay, we're a little higher than the average in Wyoming. Let's look outside of that. How high can we be, and how do we do it? Well, number one, we need high-quality teachers, and we have lots of great teachers, absolutely, without a doubt. With the shortage of staff that we see across the country, we need to ensure that we are well-funded, financially stable, that we can bring teachers, continue to bring good teachers, and not run into a point where, we have to hire certain people that are just not up to quality as to what we're used to. Also, I think discipline is important. I think keeping kids accountable, just like we need to keep the board, the administration, and the teachers accountable, the kids as well. Letting kids go all the way to the end of a semester to then 2 weeks make up the whole semester's worth of work is probably not the best thing. So I think that we need to look into that, how we can work through that. There are definitely ways to do it. Like I said, we have lots of people with degrees that have been trained well in this part. Thank you.
Steve, you have something more to say.
Well, Lynn, I think that there's, these are a couple, but I'd also throw out graduation rates. I think there's a whole lot of things that we can keep improving on. And I think that's the board and the superintendent's job, to set the goal and the vision for the school district. And then, it's the superintendent's job to execute on that. And it's the board's job to hold them accountable and to make sure that that is properly, those goals are being achieved or working towards it. I know it's not going to happen overnight, but I think another component is we've got to find ways to keep, our really good teachers in the classroom. Find ways to compensate them so they don't go into administration, so they don't go to other districts. And keeping those good teachers in those classrooms is going to be a direct reflect on how we approach these goals and how we accomplish these goals moving forward.
Thank you, Beth. Your comments?
Thank you. So again, as was noted, those are above state standards, and they're not good enough. I would completely agree. Just like our graduation rate is not good enough. It should be 100%, and that's what we're striving for, and those are conversations we've had on the board with our new superintendent. Some of the things that we're doing to improve some of these scores are aligning curriculum. So that our students are being taught the basics that they need to know. We're also doing a lot of work with professional learning communities, or PLCs, which help support our teachers and help them be even more effective in the classrooms. Again, we need to retain our great teachers. We have got to find a way in our budget, and we have found a way in our budget to continue to take care of our teachers, both in salary and in benefits, so that we can retain those really good teachers. I'm really excited. Our new superintendent is very passionate about all kids being proficient by 3rd grade in reading, and just the dramatic effects that has on students long term. And so I think we're really going to start to see some emphasis on that and some more reading specialists and ways to really improve our kids by the time they reach 3rd grade so that they're proficient readers.
And Dan.
So as part of my career, I remember being at a conference one time and the speaker said, know the score, show the score will improve. So part of the board's responsibility is to make this a priority for the administration. We're not the experts in this issue. The administration, the teachers, the other professionals we've hired within the district are the experts. So we need to hold them accountable for making it a priority, coming up with the appropriate plans to improve academic performance with our students, and then continue to monitor it. I would say as a district, I think we continue to leverage the opportunities that exist uniquely in Laramie with our proximity to the University of Wyoming and LCCC. For example, all 3 of my kids that have graduated high school started college as a sophomore in college because they took advantage of the opportunities through LCCC to do advanced classes. So that's one. I'm a big proponent, having been a teacher, it's extremely frustrating when you're working your guts out as a teacher to see others not doing the same, and you're compensated the same. Having been in business now for 21 years, I think we need to find ways to compensate our best teachers more highly, and those teachers that frankly are just waiting out for retirement or aren't doing the job as well, they need to be helped by the administration in improving their performance or moving on and letting somebody else step in and do the job in a better way.
Okay. All right. Our last question from the audience for now. How much influence should parents have in the public school curriculum? Almost the same question, but slightly different.
I think parents, all community stakeholders should have input into the curriculum. I think that's how we come up with an education for our kids that we're all proud of. You know, I think all of the things, what might be important to me might be important to Beth, but not important to Dan. His focus may be something else. And I think we need to have all of the stakeholders provide that type of input so that we can provide a complete curriculum for all of our kids.
Yeah.
Thank you. Again, I agree. I definitely think that parents need a voice in their students' education. Parents know their students better than anybody. Again, we have curriculum that is vetted by people. It's available for input. We do a lot of surveys of our community, so we do try to get feedback. Again, I'll mention the Laramie State standards that we teach to and that are always open for public comment, and those are reviewed really regularly. And again, it is tricky because we're not all going to agree on what's best for our students because everybody is unique, individual. And so I think we need to take that input from people and try to figure out what works for students so that we're not leaving any students behind and that all students receive this quality education.
Dan.
I think parents, students, and other stakeholders have a right to have a say in the curriculum being taught in their local schools. That's the beauty of a local school board system. If our school board was run from the state or the federal level, now you have very, very little input. But the beauty in the local community is somewhat what's taught in the schools can be tailored to the needs of the community. I grew up in a very rural community, so we had a lot of ag classes and other things that were reflective of what was needed in the community. So I think there is that piece to it. I would agree that there are standards set forth by the state and that schools need to hold to be accredited, so we have to be cognizant of that. But when stakeholders want that input, they also now have a responsibility to be part of the process. It's not okay to not be part of the process and then be the critic once it's developed. If you want that say, you have to be part of the process. You have to be willing to spend the time and have the input as it's being developed, not wait until the outcome and then say, wait, I don't like this.
I agree they should be involved. The question is, what are we doing as school board members to bring them in? If it's just, we have the policies, you can look them up, I don't think that's enough. What can we do as board members to bring parents into the fold? And yes, parents, I believe, have the utmost. It's their children that we have. It's not our children. It's the community's children, so I believe community secondary has a lot of input or should have a lot of input into it. You have business owners and the type who are looking for high-quality, educated students come out ready to work. And you have the expectations of what kind of jobs will they do? How will they perform? Will they go on to educate themselves? Will they then stay here? Are they proud enough to be in this school district, this county, after they graduate? So we do need to get them involved. The question is, what are we as board members going to do than just to put out, well, it's available for you to look at, because everybody's busy. Everybody's busy. We understand that. So how do we get them more involved? That's what we got to look at.
Thank you. All right. As you saw, I have a new question. My daughter graduated from Laramie High within the last 10 years, and I always felt I knew or had access to materials for all her classes. I have noticed recent complaints about parent involvement or lack of. We always attended parent-teacher conferences, but many parents didn't. Why do you feel some people now feel they don't know what is being taught? So if I count right, Beth, are you the one to start this time? I can go back and count. Huh? Yeah.
I think I'm going to answer this as a perspective of a parent. Again, I have 5 kids, and it is tricky to keep on top of what they're being taught. I think for me, some of it is the way that we deliver stuff now. I don't know how to work Canvas, and that's where all of their materials are for the most part. And so some of it, I think, is that there's a little bit of a disconnect between the way that we were taught and the way that our kids are taught. And I think in the last 2 years has really probably emphasized that because of the use of technology through COVID. So I think our job is really to figure out how can we help the parents understand and find that information. Again, as a parent, and I'm a school board member, I don't know Canvas. And so just some basics of here's where your students' information can be delivered. Here's how you can find their grades. I think we're doing some great things with the way we deliver it, but it's really hard as a parent sometimes to keep on top of that. So I think we probably need to educate parents more on how their kids are being taught, where the materials can be found, what the materials are, because I think there's a gap there that we've had happen, and we certainly can close that gap for parents so they're more involved.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
I would agree with what Trustee Bear said. It is difficult not having learned or taught through Canvas now to accept that that's the mode for my especially my son now doing his math class. I'm like, you're putting your answers into the computer? It's really, I think there's a disconnect right now between some of us of the older generation and the current students. That being said, I think the district has done a lot to try and educate parents on what's being done. There's open house nights at the beginning of the school year where parents can go in and meet the teachers. Certainly parent-teacher conferences. I don't know of a teacher that if a parent said, hey, can I stop by after school one day this week and just meet with you for 20 minutes? I don't know of a teacher that's not going to make that available. So those opportunities are there. I do agree that there's a way, probably a better way to use our communication technology to make parents more aware of the opportunities they have to get educated about what our students are learning. And then lastly, it's conversations at home with your student. You know, it's having that conversation at some point or helping them with their homework. That's a great way to do it. But honestly, if a parent wants to know what's being taught, they need to take some of the responsibility on themselves and find out what that is. I don't think there's an administrator or a teacher in the district that would deny them that opportunity.
I agree. There is a feeling out there, and I think we need to look at it as if there's a feeling, it doesn't matter if it's perceived or if it's real, we have to address it. We can't just say, well, there's a lot out there, and nobody did here, but I'm saying we can't just say, well, it's out there. You can get a hold of it. You can go on Canvas. I believe what Dan said is correct. We need to find ways of getting across to to parents, what exactly is out there. How do we teach them? How do we get a hold of them to understand it's there? But with that being said, when we do enact something, and this goes across the board, whether it's with teachers and give them extra stuff on their plate, or parents, we change how they see the documentation of what is being taught. Do we analyze what happened? Do we find out, okay, what is lacking? Did this help or did it hurt? Do we then change it? A lot of times in government, you put something in place, it may hurt or it may do nothing, and we just leave it in place and it just continues on and adds to people's plates or so on and so forth. We have to do that analyzing piece to find out what could we do better if that is a real issue or just a perceived issue. Again, it has to be addressed either way.
Thank you, Leo. Steve?
Much of what everybody else has said, I completely agree with. You know, parents have a responsibility, to their kids, a responsibility to feed, to clothe them, to shelter them, and also to care about their education. And I think a good portion falls back on the parents, but I also do think the school has a duty to communicate to the families and provide multiple options for them so they can access that information. Because, like Dan, I'm not the most technologically advanced person in the world, and I do struggle with that, but I find ways. And so I know I'm not the only one out there. And I think if we provide different opportunities for them, to access that information, I think that would be beneficial for everybody. But once again, I fall back to the parents. If it's not important to the parents, chances are it's not going to be important to the kids.
All right, well, we learned during the primary that sometimes we should sort of switch the nature of the questions. And I'm going to do that right now. I have some one or two word thoughts, and I want a simple response from you. So last night, for example, we asked the city council members to respond to city manager. They gave whether they supported, whether they didn't, what they liked about it. And I'm going to give you a harder one. Banned books. I think you start, Dan. Just a short answer. First thing that comes to mind.
Books should be age appropriate and should be vetted by a majority of stakeholders if they're going to be taught in our school system.
Leo?
I absolutely agree. Books ought to be age appropriate. There are guidelines that the state and the district has that should be followed, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
Definitely, there are some books that do not belong in schools, and I think that those books may be more age appropriate for when a child, leaves, and gets into college, and that may be up to them to decide if they want to read that or not. But while they're kids, I think we need to make sure that we take in all stakeholders' input and make sure that we're not providing those books that could compromise that.
I don't think we should be banning books in the context of kind of how you've described it. I think we should leave it up to our library specialists, who are really educated, qualified people, to ensure that all of our materials at our schools are age appropriate, and they help kids not only with their curriculum, but they also help them sort of broaden their worldview, which I believe is happening.
All right, thank you. I don't know if you know this, but there is a nice website that will give you the books that were banned when you were a child. It's a real eye-opener. I did go back to the 50s and the 60s and looked at the books that were banned during my childhood. I have read many of them, not as a child. Anyway, let's try another one of these, shall we? Financial literacy. It's a hot topic these days. Short reply.
Financial literacy?
Yes.
Okay, well, if hopefully the people running are financially stable, they have that ability. But if we don't get the kids out with that ability, where are they going to end up? How are they going to be able to move forward in the future with major decisions in their life? Those types of decisions will make or break the child and make or break the community.
Okay, thank you. Steve.
Lynn, this is something I probably have a lot of experience with as a financial
imagine.
advisor in our community. I think that this is one area of our education that we've really missed. And so I think our financial literacy is something that we need to make sure our kids have a better understanding. I think all of us in this room have benefited with maybe and have gotten away with a little bit less of a financial understanding. I think our kids are not going to be blessed with that opportunity to have that kind of a grace period through their life of having a little bit less of a comfort with it. I know in other countries around the world, I know they teach financial, and how money works and business. That is part of their curriculum that they teach with math, with history. And I think we really need to address that because I think it's something we're really missing right now.
Beth.
I absolutely think that you turned it off on me again. I absolutely think we should be teaching financial literacy. I do know we have at least one class at the high school, but we could be doing more. I think it's part of our responsibility as a school district to make sure that when our kids graduate, they're ready for the world. And I think that is such an important thing to make sure that they understand finances and they understand the way that it works and that they're educated before they go into the workplace or trade school or college, wherever that next step is. But absolutely, we do and we need to be doing more. It's very, very important.
Okay. Dan, we'll let you finish up as the math teacher.
I'll try and keep my answer short, but this is a hard one to keep
Okay.
it short on. So I would say this, we do fall short. My oldest son and oldest daughter graduated valedictorians from Laramie High School, didn't know how to do a budget or what a mutual fund was if I hadn't taught them. So we do fall short in that area. When I was a teacher at Laramie High School, I was a strong advocate in our math department that we needed to teach financial literacy as part of our curriculum. As a member of Leadership Wyoming, this was a project that actually me and 5 of my classmates worked on making these resources available to Wyoming schools. So I'm a big proponent of it. I would
Short
say,
answer. That's short enough? Go ahead.
let me
Make
say
one more thought. Sure.
one last thing. Again, I think we can partner with the University of Wyoming and LCCC for some of these resources if our schools don't have the resources to do it properly.
Okay. Thank you very much. One of my personal heroes used to go around the country talking about how everybody needed to understand the exponential function. If they did, we wouldn't have financial illiteracy. So, anyway, the exponential function is how our compound interest works. All right, well, this all brings us to a very common question that I have. What is the role of the Laramie school system, or the Albany County school system, with adult education? You've talked about teaching the adults to to interface with their students' information and data and things like that. What about adult education, period? Leo, I think, Steve, you're up, sorry.
Well, I think our education, within our community doesn't stop once our kids graduate. I think we can partner up with the university, with the LCCC, and provide, more opportunities, for continuing education. I think as we start to look back and where we missed, opportunities, those are the places that we need to look forward to fill in those gaps.
Okay, thank you. Beth.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure I completely understand the question. So I guess I would just say, yeah, I think we do have a lot of resources in this community, both with the university and with LCCC, with WyoTech. And I do think as a district we can support our students after graduation, and so that they're successful, like I've mentioned, that it doesn't end at graduation. And so we really need to set our students up so that when they become adults and they graduate, hopefully 100% of them graduate, that they are educated, that they have a path to continue that education. We have so many resources in this town that we should be tapping into.
Let me maybe clarify if anybody else wants to go back and say more. I think the intent of the question was for people who might not have graduated from high school, people who might not have been in the U.S. for high school, all kinds of education. So, Steve, would you like to make an additional comment?
I just throw a comment quickly out there, I guess. My grandfather immigrated over here when he was, in his 20s, and he went back to school when he was in his 30s and learned how to speak English and learned how to, communicate in this country and work towards a better life. And I think we should provide those same opportunities and reach out when we know that there's, people in our community that maybe, are lacking in certain aspects. And I think we work with some of the different groups within our community that can help us identify those folks. I think we really need to find ways to help them, to have more access to the education so that they can be more productive within our community.
Thank you. Beth.
I appreciate the clarification. So I would just say, I do think there's a lot of paths, and everybody has a different path to receiving a degree, and I think we can promote that. And there are a lot of different proficiency exams and ways to achieve a high school degree or diploma. And it's staggering to look at the statistics on what dropping out of high school or not having a high school diploma, how that affects somebody throughout their entire life, and how it affects the community. We as a school district, I think, need to partner with people in order to provide more of those opportunities.
Dan?
I think it's a very noble aspiration. Certainly as a school district, your number one priority is education. Unfortunately, the realities are we're not doing a great job right now educating the kids that we're tasked with providing a quality education to. The statistics we just talked about earlier are referring to that. So our priorities as a district have to be first to our students that are within our school system. If we have the extra budget, the extra resources, and the extra time to help provide some of those opportunities to other constituents within our community, then by all means we should do so. And I think there's a lot of people within the district that would be very willing to do that. But to do it from a district standpoint and make it a priority over our current students, our current budget priorities, some of those things, I just don't see how we're able to do that right now. Would I love to be able to do it? Yes. I think counselors and teachers can help identify some of those families that may have those needs. The district can help point them in the right direction for some of those resources. But at this point in time, I think the priorities have to be to our current students.
Thank you, Dan. Leo, do you want to wrap up?
Yep. I agree. The current students are the most important. In fact, if you give them the best education possible, you will have a lot less of a population to deal with the older people, those who are outside of education age. If we do want to go down that road, I believe you'd have to pull in many different entities. Dan has mentioned a couple, the Wyoming University, different colleges, the community as a whole, the business owners as well would like to have a large educated population. That's how our community does better. So if we're going to do this, I believe it has to be in cooperation with other people. I believe you're going to need that funding from outside because we just had some budget cuts that weren't great, and we need to make sure and ensure that our students are educated, and then look at what we're going to do outside of that.
Okay. I was a teacher for 35 years. I can't help but not tell you. LCCC offers free classes to study for becoming a citizen and English language as a second language. Just an FYI. In any case, but I think that may be it. I have a new question. This goes to the other end of the spectrum, the students who are excelling. And it says, most students who were in my child's advanced placement classes have left Wyoming and don't plan to return ever. The school board, of course, doesn't have influence over the culture of Wyoming that may not appeal to young people. Is there anything the school system can do to help keep our brightest students here? Yes, you get to start.
I think that's tricky. I agree. I think, kind of as we said in the past, our priority and our focus needs to be on students and making sure that students are completely prepared when they graduate from high school for whatever their future might hold. I do think what we can do as a community, I think this is much more of a community question. Our district is a large part of our community. We've seen that over the last several years especially. And so I don't think it's the district taking on, I think it's working with our community to do things like bring more businesses into town and have more jobs in town that would keep students here after, or even in Wyoming. And so I look at it as that we can show students all the possibilities of things that they might be able to do after high school, including things in Wyoming. And then as a community, we really have to work on having those resources and opportunities here in Laramie and the Albany County and Wyoming for our students.
Dan.
Again, that's a tough question. I would say this. I don't know Leo or Beth's backgrounds, but I can tell you Steve and I are Wyoming born and raised kids. And part of what drew me back to Wyoming and wanted me to stay in Wyoming was the experience I had in my childhood growing up. And a big part of that was my school experience. So what can we do to help increase the odds that our best and our brightest stay in Wyoming? Make their experience as a student in our school system the most positive one that we possibly can. Challenge them to be the best students they can be, but provide them great role models. Provide them opportunities to expand their horizons within the classroom and outside of the classroom. I think Laramie does a fantastic job of providing opportunities for a lot of extracurricular activities. You can learn a lot through those programs. Can we control whether our best and brightest want to come back and work in Wyoming? Well, it depends on what they're going to do. But part of it is if we can bring in resources that educate our kids about what opportunities exist for them in Wyoming beyond high school and beyond college, that may help increase it as well. But my short answer, help make their experience as a student the most positive one that it can be.
Okay. Leo.
Yes, absolutely the most positive. I think we also need a pride. We need a pride in the community. We need a pride of the students that they love their school. I've talked to many kids who say, yeah, I'm not really proud of it. I'm not really proud of my school. I never even really think about it. Let's have that pride. Every school I've ever been in or my kids have ever been in, there was a great pride for it. And there's different ways of doing that, but we also then need to look at how can we educate students and challenge them. Okay, you want something different. Well, why don't you create the difference? Why don't we educate them to the point where they can know that they can go out and create something unique in a community, a unique business? Let's get them running with that, with the good background education. Let's educate them not just how they vision where they're going to be, because it's usually one vision. When I first went to college, I was going to do something, and guess what? I changed 3 times. Well, So we need to prepare them for everything that life can bring them, everything that Laramie can bring them, but let them know there's more to Laramie that they can create.
Okay. Steve?
So I guess I'd like to know what are the reasons they felt that way, and so I think that's an important part. But like Dan said, I think so many times you grow up and you get this idea of what everything's like on the outside until you get on the outside, and then you really miss Wyoming. I'd like to know how many of those kids would like to come back. And so I know I did it, I know Dan did it, and I think, like you said, providing those same opportunities that you had growing up and being able to look back and in a fond way of the childhood and the education and the community that you grew up in, you really, I think, is paramount to getting some of our kids back. I also think, like Beth said, I think it's important. We don't have an extremely diverse economic, state, and I think helping these students to find opportunities so that they can be part of that diversity and provide, more economic diversity as they move forward. So I think there's a couple of different ways you can look at this, but I'd also like to just know, why do they feel that way when they leave?
Okay. Well, it's also been reported, we're moving to a slightly different topic, that statewide there are many high school students in need of tutoring in basic subjects when they get to college, and a number of them are failing or losing their Hathaway scholarships as a result. What does our school district need to do to address these deficiencies? Now, you've already talked about the statistics. Now we're talking about Hathaway.
So don't talk about the statistics. I'd come back to an earlier answer. I don't think it's the school board's responsibility to come up with those plans. We've hired well-educated professional administrators. We've hired well-educated professional teachers and well-educated professional certified staff to decide what are the best ways to educate our students. So it's the board's responsibility to make that a priority. If you provide a quality education, the need for tutoring beyond high school to get up to speed in college classes becomes a lot less. Unfortunately, we can't help those that have already graduated high school. That bell is rung. But we can do a lot for the kids that are currently in our system and make sure that we're preparing them for what they need. It's not always a college track for every student. Some students, it may be trade schools. Some, it may be straight to the workforce. Their future looks a lot different for individual students, so you have to serve a diversity of needs. But again, it's the administration's responsibility to come up with those plans. It's our job as board members to hold them accountable for executing on those plans and continue to voice it as a priority to the administration.
Accountability is definitely a big piece here. Accountability, again, of the administration, the teachers, and the students from there on down. We have to have that accountability. The education, again, yeah, we need to have different levels of that we're looking at, but everybody has to be proficient in what our core subjects are. If we don't have the proficiency, you are going to have the issues that we're seeing. I just talked to a parent who said that their daughter went down to Colorado to university, and she called her right back up and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm not prepared for this at all." I came from the same type of setup. I went to a school and I came out, I was not prepared for college. It was a rude awakening. We have to look at what is on the teachers' plates. Again, like I said before, we enact stuff. We put stuff on people's plates. Do we then look at that and say, okay, there was no benefit of it, it actually hurts, or it helps? And then take away the pieces that don't. We leave them in place too long, too often, and that plate gets heavier and heavier and heavier. If we have that need for people for students to get more tutoring, we should provide that as needed, but our teachers should have the ability to get it through to them. And there, again, I go back to the accountability of the students. Don't let the students just not do work for a whole semester, and in the last 2 weeks, let me plow everything I can. And I've experienced that firsthand with my son. Everything's done in the last 2 weeks. It doesn't do the job that we need to do.
I know our new superintendent, Dr. Goldhart, and our school board, as well as our fantastic people, teachers, educators over there in all parts of Albany County School District number 1, have a plan to improve this. I don't think anybody's excited about, where those test scores have been, but I'm excited about, what our plan in place, to improve on that. I do think that we can, survey, some of those graduate kids to see where they are lacking and just use that as, beneficial information to improve on the processes that we're working on. Because essentially we have to do a better job of preparing each and every student for the next stage. Like Dan said, whether it's, college, whether it's vocation, school, or if it's just entering the workforce. But all of our kids need to leave with a much better, well-rounded education.
Beth.
Thank you. So I think as it relates to tutoring in college, I think for those kids that are college bound, well, we can look at a couple things, and I think this is both our district and our education system with our educators, and also parents and guardians play a large role in this. I think we can look at college readiness and what that means for kids, and how do we prepare them not only to be proficient in subjects, but also to be college ready. And I think sometimes there's a gap there that I'm not sure it's that they don't know those subjects, that sometimes I think we also need to teach kids how to study. I know for me personally, when I went to college, I didn't know how to study. And so I see that in my own kids too. I think that's a skill that isn't always taught, and that we could do a lot more making sure that if the kids do have the knowledge, they know how to show that, and that they, again, know how to study so that they are more proficient.
Okay, well, some encouraging comments from you all. Faith in our new superintendent. Speaking of our new superintendent, a number of the school board members, I don't think among you, but have publicly stated that they are really in favor of a new plan for the school board, in that you divide into smaller subcommittees and take on responsibilities like curriculum, school finances. Those are the only 2 subcommittees I'm aware of. As far as I know, that hasn't been done before. Why would that be a good idea? Or why not? And maybe the better question is, what's the line between micromanaging and trust?
Did you say what's the difference, or what is the
What's
fine
the
line?
between the fine line?
Well, as a school board member, and I've heard people say as well, we have to rely on that. We have to rely on the administration. We have to rely on it, and we do. But we also have to hold accountability. That's our job, is to make sure that the plan they set out, that is actually being followed through with. So hands off is not something you're doing. The day-to-day stuff, yes, that's something we would not do, the day-to-day stuff. But if the day-to-day stuff's not working, then we need to ensure that they're going to make changes, they're going to change the plan, they get the resources they need to fulfill that plan. If they have a plan and we just ignore it and don't give them the pieces that we agreed that the plan would work, then that's on us. And I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
No, I just asked,
The split up of committees.
how is that going to work? Did you think it's a good idea?
The split of if it's never been done before, we have to look at it again. You want to make sure that if you're going to do that, were the results good? Did it hurt? Did it not? I don't think that the board, other members of the board, should not have the information that everybody does in these breakout committees. So it's got to be some kind of massive feedback that's coming back to us, because I wouldn't want to rely on one person and what they decided was the good curriculum from the board. I'd want my hands in that too. So
Okay.
I'm a little torn on it.
Thank you. Steve?
Well, I think participation is critical for the board. One of the things that we've heard back from the teachers is maybe that we are a little bit too distant and maybe not as engaged. And as a board member, I know for almost a year that I've served on the board, there's a lot of aspects that there's no way I'm going to completely understand unless I'm down in the trenches on a subcommittee. And I love it. I love this idea. I think it's fantastic. Teachers are some of our biggest stakeholders, our administrators, and I think how do we know what the real issue is if we don't collaborate with them and try to find a way to, to really understand the problem so we can address it. But I also understand, micromanaging versus trust. I think we have to all trust that, we're going to work within the chain of command and work with each other to solve this problem. I think that is part of, this board that, I've been on is this is a very cooperative, well-working board. And this is a group that works really well together and has come together to address a lot of big problems and come up with some great solutions.
Thank you. Yes.
So I am in favor of it. I think governance is the other one. So I think it's curriculum, finance, and governance. And this
Okay,
came
thanks.
about partly because of our new superintendent, and I think he's had some past experience and had success with this, and partly because of some of budget realities. And I'll be real honest, the budget was complex. We've switched business managers. We don't have one. And we realized as a board, we have got to know some more about our budget. We need to know about our reserves. We have to be more educated on this so that we can make decisions, especially when there might be cuts that we have to make. So I think it's a really good idea. I'm on several boards or committees on the school board, and I think that's where a lot of work gets done. The idea is that there'd be 3 board members for each of these subcommittees, and then they would report back at a work session or at a board meeting about what happened, which is how most of our committees, there's always time for a committee report. So I think it's a really good idea to dive deep. Our job on the board will not be to micromanage. It will be to listen and to learn and to understand, and then make sure that the whole board understands that as well. I often say that sort of the board is kind of the what, and the administration and our teachers are the how. So we are not in the business of micromanaging or operational decisions. We kind of set the policy and the direction, and then we have fantastic people that see that out.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
I don't like going after Beth because she steals all my good answers. So, no, I have experience of this at our company. We have 8 people on our executive leadership team. I've been doing that for 15 years, and we routinely break into subgroups on a particularly complex issue. Sometimes it's because some of us have more expertise in an area than others. Some of us have more energy. But as Beth said, it allows you to dive more deep into the issue. And you have a responsibility to come back to the larger group and explain your rationale, explain what information you looked at, how you arrived at those decisions. And the group that you're reporting back to has a responsibility to ask questions. It can't just be rubber stamp what the committee did because we didn't have time to look at it. You have the responsibility to ask questions and be informed, but you're trusting your fellow board members that were elected by the city and the people of Albany County to represent all their stakeholders and be advocates for the students. So I don't have an issue with the subcommittees. I think it's a great idea. If our new superintendent has had experience with it and it's been positive, I think we need to trust the professional we've hired and try their recommendations. But as Leo has said, if something isn't working, analyze it and be willing to change if it's not.
No, thank you very much. Complex answers to that question. I have another, which is maybe simpler. It's a problem that you hear people grumbling about on the university campus. Do you think that in the school district there is too much emphasis placed on STEM classes in the curriculum? And STEM, for those of you who don't know that acronym, it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Honestly, I think for so long maybe we didn't put enough emphasis on it, and now we're trying to play catch up with maybe parts of the rest of the world that did emphasize it, and I don't think that we put too much emphasis on it. But at the expense of jeopardizing other parts of a curriculum or the education of a child and our students, no, it's definitely not worth that. I firmly believe in the complete education, but having a focus in the STEM, classes and curriculum definitely should be a priority. That's where, Wayne Gretzky always said, why he was so great. He always went to where the puck was going to be. Well, guess what? That's where the puck is going to be, and I think we need to train our kids so that they're best prepared for that.
Okay.
It has not been my experience that we're placing too much emphasis on STEM classes. I think we offer a wide variety of diverse opportunities. I feel so lucky that my kids are in this district. I don't remember that growing up. In extracurriculars, in their core classes, in their electives, I mean, from industrial arts to cooking to auto to theater, there are so many opportunities to excite and engage students. And that's really what's going to keep students in school and keep them succeeding and keep them motivated. I feel like this is similar to the finance question. I'm a biologist by trade, so I do think that's an important topic to cover, but I don't currently think we're doing it at the expense of other things. We have such a well-rounded, diverse curriculum in our district.
Thank you. 2 positive answers. Dan?
To borrow a response Steve said earlier, I'd want to understand why that perception is in place. So I'd want to have some conversations with the people in the community that feel that way and understand, is it, as Leo said, perception to that person is a reality. So why do they think that? Do I think there's too much emphasis in the classroom on STEM? No. I think core fundamentals, just like in anything, you have to have a solid basis to work from. But my kids are great examples. My middle daughter, she took theater all throughout high school, one of her absolute favorite classes. My son currently right now, he's taking Spanish and woodworking. So there's opportunities to expand beyond that. But I would also come back to our curriculum needs to have some input and influence from our community. Like I said before, if an ag-based community may want more ag-based classes, a community that has maybe more technology opportunities for their kids, maybe they want more technology-based classes. So there has to be some flexibility in adapting your curriculum to meet the needs of your community and what stakeholders are looking for. There's plenty of those opportunities, though, also within LCCC and UW that we can take advantage of as well.
Thank you. Leo?
Yeah, thank you. I do agree. Perception is an important part. So why do they see it that way? We have a vast variety of stuff that our students can do. And yes, focusing too much on something will pull from some students from things that they could excel in. But we do need it all, and some kids need that extra challenge. They thrive on that extra challenge, and those who don't, fine, they have other courses. But again, we should ensure that we are getting proficient in all the basic parts of it and not put one piece above everything else where we're then missing the proficiency in other things like English and so on and so forth. Yes, it is a lot of the future. It's a lot of pieces that we would need. But there's other pieces of the future too. It's not everything, so it shouldn't be the sole focus, and I don't believe it is. I think the STEM is fine.
Okay. Well, take a sigh of relief. I think I put you through more questions than most groups just because you're small in number and you've done great. On this last round, why don't you just make a statement that you like the community to hear from you, about you. It's your choice. Take about a minute to do it. And I think, Dan, are you first?
Everybody else was
Who
hoping
knows?
they weren't, so I'll go.
Sort of dizzying, isn't it?
I'm going to ask for just a little bit more time than maybe a minute. I would say this. I'm passionate about education. I'm a product of Wyoming education. I've seen what it can do in my life in terms of not only preparing me for college. I hold 3 degrees from the University of Wyoming, so I'm a strong believer in educating yourself past high school. I also am a strong believer that education needs to teach work ethic and discipline. So we need to support our teachers in instances where they're following the policies and doing what they're supposed to do, and somebody gets upset with that. They need support from the administration when that's happening. Ultimately, I think the job of the board is to hold our administration accountable for doing what they say they're going to do. Lastly, what I would tell you is I would be very committed to getting input from the stakeholders. I applaud the job that the current school board has done through COVID and the pandemic. It was not an easy thing to do. What I would be slightly critical of is I don't think there was a concerted effort to gather a wide variety of input from the community in terms of using technology for surveys. We had 3 board vacancies during the last couple years. I don't recall as a parent seeing a survey about which candidates I would support. It was a decision made solely by the board. I don't think that's right. I think we need to take our stakeholders' opinions into account. We need to get at least a data point of what the majority opinion is and act from that. Now, does it have to be through surveys? No, but we need to do a better job in proactively seeking that feedback, not just seeing what we get from the most concerned stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, not necessarily the loudest squeaky wheel. We do need to find that common communication with everybody. We need to listen proactively. We need to think about the listening, but not just listening. People can see through listening. If you're just saying, oh, I listened, they want to know why you made a decision you made. There's not enough communication from what people have brought to my attention from the board, between the board, the districts, the parents. And again, whether it's perceived or real, it doesn't matter. The fact that it was put out there is something that we must address. We have to. I did mention I have a Bachelor of Science in Education. I worked at what's known as intermediate units back in Pennsylvania, where we dealt with kids with special needs. We dealt with a lot of services for 12 different school districts. I also deal currently with many different businesses. We're talking manufacturing businesses, educational institutions, cyber schools, down to medical equipment and so on and so forth. And what we do is we look at processes almost as a consultant. We go in, we find out what their deficiencies are, what they can do better, and what works, what doesn't work. And then we create, using technology, in my case, better ways for them to perform. I would like to bring this to the districts in the sense of looking at how things are running and how can we improve it? How can we make it better? How can we hold people accountable? So education has always been a key point of mine. I've always had a focus on it, enjoy it, and I want my kids, but I want the community's kids to have that chance to have the education like many other districts do.
Thank you. Steve?
I've been on the board for 10 months now, and I'm appreciative of the board for giving me the opportunity to be on the board for the last 10 months. I've got a new appreciation. Anybody who hasn't been on a school board probably doesn't understand the amount of work that goes into it, and to do it right takes a lot of work. And I'm excited about that now. I feel like these last 10 months I've got my feet underneath me, and I'm excited about the process that we have and the goals that we have in place. I'm excited about our new superintendent. I'm excited about the direction that we're going. And I'm excited about that work that I can be a part of, to help, us to achieve those goals. You don't get out of it, you get out of it what you put into it. And I really do think that, with a board that's willing to work hard and to execute these goals along with our new superintendent, I think we're going to be excited about the changes that we see. I also think that, I hope that we start seeing more community engagement. We saw a whole bunch in COVID, and I'd love to see that at every board meeting, because every board meeting, something important is happening. And I'd love to see more, community participation, because this is our kids' education and something that we should hold, a great passion for, to make sure they get the best by the time they graduate from our schools.
And lastly, Beth.
Thank you. So I've been on the board for 4 years through some really difficult and unprecedented times, and have grown a lot and have learned a lot, and really want to continue to do that hard work and serve my community. It's been a real honor to be on the board. As Steve mentioned, it's hard work, and I'm ready for that hard work. I feel like I approach things with an open mind, and I'll be honest, I know that through the last 2 years there have been decisions or votes I've made that people don't agree with, but I think I've always had an open mind and listened to people with respect and tried to be as collaborative as possible. I always reply to people through thousands of emails. I think that's really important to make sure that people know they've been heard. Just a few things that I think I'd like to focus on or continue to focus on is school safety and security and the mental health of our students. Increased communication and engagement. Again, I don't think we can say it enough. I do think we have, and we've tried, and we can get better. I for sure we can get better at it. And I do think our new superintendent has some great ideas so that we can do that. And then again, supporting our teachers and staff and trying to figure out some really tricky budget times. So yeah, I'd certainly be honored by your vote.
All right. Well, I think that's the end for tonight. I want to compliment all four of you. You've certainly done your duty in getting, I think, our viewing audience and our audience here excited about participating with the school board and maybe what's coming with the new superintendent. So thank you. You've done that for me. Yes, give them a hand. All right, well, there'll be 2 more school board candidate forums next Wednesday and next Thursday. Same time, same place. I hope you come back and bring your friends and family. Don't forget to vote. I know you won't. This is more for your friends and family. Remind them to vote. And if there's anything you need, any questions you have about ballots or wards in the city or voting districts, you've got a wealth of information. And the nearest and easiest thing to do is just call your county clerk. And they're incredibly good at answering questions. So, anyone else in the audience? A last comment? Yes. I didn't plan on it. There'll probably be some overlap. But it's not really fair for these candidates that the next 2 sets sort of know them in advance, so no. Anybody else? All right, well, if you'll hang around and mingle, we've told our audience that you'll be here for them to speak with one-on-one. And again, thank you so much for being here. You make these forums possible. So, good night.